begin this edition with the latest news coming in from Nepal. Hours after the Nepal Parliament approved the amendment to its new map, claiming the Indian territories of Lipu Lake, Kalapani and Limpiyadura, the MEA has now responded to Nepal's new map, saying that it is a clear violation of the current understanding to hold talks on the outstanding boundary issues. The Ministry of External Affairs has said that the artificial enlargement of claims by Nepal is not based on historical facts and evidence. Remember, this comes after Nepal Prime Minister has been under tremendous pressure back home, and the fact that Ministry of External Affairs has already called this a unilateral action. More on this, I'm joined by our executive editor Abhishek and also our editor Niranjan Narayan. Let me come to you first, Abhishek, to put this into perspective. Not the first time, Ministry of External Affairs already dubbing this entire move by the Nepal government as a unilateral action. But put this into perspective, what really triggered off Nepal carrying out this sort of an action in the first place?
Well, Shawan, give me some time. Let me explain. The Ministry of External Affairs statement is measured. It has said that we have noted the development, which essentially means that we are not too much bothered beyond a point, except for that some bilateral understanding has been breached. It can lead to a lack of trust. But having said that, you have to understand there is confusion within the ranks of Nepali leadership. For example, after bringing in this map, the day they introduced it in their lower house, they also set up a task force to decide what all constitute territories of Nepal, which means the government of Nepal, of KP Sharma Oli, does not know what are the boundaries and territories of Nepal. That itself has sent a very confusing message down to the people of Nepal as to what is the intention of this government. Also remember, this is a process, an ongoing process. Lok Sabha the equivalent of Lok Sabha, the lower house of Nepal, has passed it today. It is going to go to the upper house and then presidential assent, and then it becomes a law, becomes part of their emblem or whatever they call it. But what is important is I was actually watching some of the debates in the Lok Sabha, or I beg your pardon, in the lower house that were happening in Kathmandu. And the interesting bit was that every leader who was boasting about or supporting this measure was also saying that we should continue to hold talks with India. Now, that's where the problem is. India never said no to talks. Talks were on. In fact, the talks were disrupted, as in the case of Nepal, because of the COVID situation. And the government of India had communicated to the government of Nepal that we will continue the talks to your satisfaction. Let this crisis get over, which you are also dealing with. So the backdrop is that the Oli government has really fared miserably on this COVID situation, on which they have tried to put the blame on India as well. Also, there is a turf war going on between KP Sharma Oli and Pushpa Kumar Prachanda Dahal. In fact, if you listen to the speech of Dahal in Parliament today, you would realize that he is actually, kind of inciting Oli. If you read between the lines, by saying that, bravo, you have been a nationalist. Right. If you had not done it, I would have done it. So in a way, it's internal to Nepal. And that's why this very measured statement that has come from the Ministry of External Affairs, where we have said we have noted about it, it amounts to breach of understanding so far as ongoing talks are concerned. And as I said, the process is still on. The onus is on the Nepali leadership really now to find a way out.
Well, Abhishek, let me also bring in Niranjan to put this into perspective, because I was going through some newspapers in Kathmandu, and this is what they essentially had to say. What triggered off, if you go by their account, what triggered off the anger of the Prime Minister in Nepal was the road that was essentially being constructed by India from Darchula all the way to Lipu Lake. But the fact of the matter, Niranjan, is that India has always said this is within our own territory, 380 square meter, the tri-junction of Nepal, India and China, what we are essentially talking about. But yet, Nepal's foreign minister says that we are open to dialogue, but goes ahead with this sort of an amendment in the first place.
Well, that's correct. You look at the statement also coming in from the Ministry of External Affairs, and Abhishek has sort of encapsulated it. Let me just give you the details of what the Ministry of External Affairs has said, and let's look at what happened after the Constitutional Amendment Bill was passed in the lower house of the Nepalese Parliament. Now, First of all, the MEA has said that the coat of arms of Nepal by the House of Representatives of Nepal, the official spokesperson has said that we have noted that the House of Representatives of Nepal has passed a constitutional amendment bill for changing the map of Nepal to include parts of Indian territory. We have already made our position clear on the matter. This artificial enlargement, so India is making it clear they don't accept it, of course, which has been our stated position. Artificial enlargement of claims is not based on historical fact or evidence and is not tenable. It is also violative of our current understanding to hold talks on outstanding boundary issues. So, I think with that statement, Abhishek, what the MEA has also done is shut the door on possible talks with Nepal. Of course, you mentioned how different leaders and ministers within the Nepalese government have been saying that dialogue is the only way forward. And while, of course, trying to fan this anti-India nationalism in Nepal, they have also kept that, they kept that 5 or 10% option open of saying that we will try and resolve through dialogue. Though, of course, it doesn't make any sense because once you've taken it to the lower house, technically there are 2 or 3 steps left. But I think, one interesting statement that also came in from the Nepalese, lower house today was the Prime Minister of Nepal saying that, further steps now need to be taken regarding the 380 square kilometers that is Indian territory, which they claim has, which Nepal claims is its own. Now, looking at the different statements being made, now I'm just recapping some of the statements made, and I'll toss it to Abhishek. One statement that was made a few days back, when the Nepalese, the army and the security establishment said, no, we will not post our forces there. But going by what the Prime Minister says, he says we should make sure that we secure our area. And with India saying that there is no scope for dialogue, and let me read out the exact words of what the Ministry of External Affairs has said, and then I'll hand it over to Abhishek. The exact words used by the External Affairs Ministry is that this is an artificial enlargement of claims, not based on historical fact. Evidence is not tenable. It is also violative of our current understanding. To hold talks on outstanding boundary issues. Abhishek.
Well, yes, Niranjan, so that's what I was saying, that, the government of India has made its position clear earlier to the Nepalese side that after the COVID crisis is over, which you are also dealing with, we'll come back to the talks. But what is more important is, Shravan was mentioning about the road being a trigger, or the inauguration of the road being a trigger for this Nepali action. Remember, this road has existed for decades and more and has been used as Indian territory. And in 2016-17, when 2015 to be precise, when India signed a deal with China on Lipulek as a trading point, Nepal never bothered. And the fact is, we have to understand, this is purely a product of the internal dynamics of Nepali politics and nothing to do with what India has done by way of concretizing that road which already existed. And that is why I am maintaining, Niranjan, that while this process is on, the bravado that we saw in some leaders of Nepal also was accompanied by this refrain that let's continue talking to India. Remember, it's unfortunate because as Prime Minister Modi had said in his address to the Nepalese Parliament or Constituent Assembly in 2015, 2 things I remember because I was present there in Kathmandu. A, that when you make this constitution, remember that this constitution should remain relevant over a century, after 100 years also, which was again breached in terms of understanding by the Nepalese. Number 1, which led to a blockade by India in 2015. Number 2, Prime Minister had said that post-independence, there is not a single war that India has fought in which Nepalese have not shed their blood because so many Nepali citizens are part of Indian Army. In fact, the Nepali Army Chief is an honorary chief of Indian Army and vice versa. So it's unfortunate that this development has happened purely as a product of internal trouble between the leaders of the Nepali Communist Party, I must say, and even as this process goes on, I believe the government of India would come back with a little more detailed response over a period of time because, as I said, the parliamentary process is still on. It is going to go to upper house.
Right.
Obviously, it would be passed given the kind of unanimity we have seen in the lower house, but that provides time for the Nepali leadership to still introspect and come back with a mindset of dialogue,
Right.
which can happen post-COVID crisis.
Well, thank you very much, Abhishek, as well as Niranjan, for putting this into perspective. And as Abhishek was pointing out, it does appear at this point in time a clear result of the internal tussle that's happening within the Nepalese government, a result of which we are seeing today.